So I guess this time I want to tell about the conference I visited recently. It was Droidcon Berlin. It turned out that when I started preparing this presentation, I realized that it's not that easy because it's easy to talk about it as some sort of experience, a place you visit like a vacation, but to compose slides you can show, it's actually, it turned out not that great. So brace yourself. The presentation might look awful in places, but I decided I can add a lot of photos, and basically that's it. And it adds some background story to it. So here we go. What's the Droidcon at all? It's first of all, it's a global community that happened to have conferences in different places. To my knowledge, it's the biggest Android conference in the world. There's a asterisk saying that Google I/O is bigger, but it's kind of different thing. It's basically Google telling you how good they are and what they made in the last year. It's not that kind of conference, in my opinion. It's also the oldest one. Again, still not older than Google, but again, different thing, in my opinion. Yeah, what I found that it's like maybe around 40,000 participants across the world yearly, and now it also expanded to FlutterCon about Flutter development and T3 Summit, which is something different. That was probably the first event ever this year. It's about technical leadership and this kind of stuff. I honestly have no idea what they were talking about at that conference. I was passing the place it was taking place, and it looked like just a bunch of dudes sitting at the tables in front of laptops and talking. Like, that was a strange event to me, but they called it a success, so I'll call it success too. Additionally, since it's a community, there's a Droidcon Academy, which kind of explains itself, I guess. It's about where? Well, it started in 2009 in Berlin, and now it's held in 25 cities across the world. Berlin is probably the biggest venue still. Yeah, just one quick check. Last time when we were talking, I figured out that no one was hearing me. So let me know if something goes wrong, because I don't see chat or whatever else. So with this remark, let's go forward. As I said, it happens in 25 cities now. Berlin is the biggest one. Conference takes 3 days there. Apart from conferences, there are a lot of stuff happening during this event. For instance, one day there is a movie night. You can see it at the bottom left photo. There are a lot of, well, not a lot of, but at least 3 distinct big quizzes happened there. The first day it was like just a goofy one about different random stuff, and the second day it was something more technical. I failed the first one miserably. I don't have anything to brag here, but I guess the second was a bit better. Yeah, this slide basically a bunch of photos proving it's in Berlin. Berlin is a very nice place to be. You can go from Warsaw there by train. Sometimes it can be 8 hours late. I know this photo at the bottom is just a glitch, but it was too good to pass it. Like, delayed by 527 minutes. Yeah, as I said, Berlin is a place with a history. You can see like the remains of the wall. And another thing I haven't seen since I was in school, a software you can buy on discs in a store, and it was like all the software in existence. That's like another fun stuff for me. Yeah, now a bit about the venue. Well, I wasn't to a lot of conferences, but it was kind of nice. It was conveniently organized. There are 5 halls, all called after the most noticeable Google products they killed. As you can see, it's Glass, as in Google Glass. Hangouts is one of dozens chat they made. Stadia, which was a gaming platform. I don't know why they abandoned it, because NVIDIA doing great with that now. But yeah, Nest was what? Some home stuff like Alexa, I guess, or something more complex. And what's left? Yeah, Android Things. That's the most strange to me, because the Internet of Things, like software for small devices, is still a thing. I don't know why they closed it, but here we are. Another interesting thing about the whole conference, I kind of realized later that it was, as you can see from one presentation at the bottom, 100% AI free. It's not entirely true, but through 3 days and 5 tracks running simultaneously, which gives like 5 talks a day in each venue. There were like maybe 5 topics related to AI and ML. I understand it's not because people don't care. It's because the organizers didn't pass these more talks of this kind there, but it was a nice thing, I would say, because I was a bit afraid of that all the stuff they will be talking about there will be everything plus AI to it, but it wasn't. So it was a good thing, I guess. Yeah, the part about the conference, like where people talking about interesting stuff, was good, but some other stuff wasn't that good. Apparently, there is a running joke about food on the conference, and that Droidcon can't make it right, like never. If you can see a notification the app was sending the second day that please don't go to more than one food truck, because people start getting hungry. Yeah, and actually the third day, well, basically there was a huge hall with like maybe 7 food trucks, and you have a nice opportunity to spend 20 minutes in a queue and have food, like have them completely run out of food right before you. That was me in the third day, I guess, but yeah, it wasn't that bad. And this sock is in the center. It's probably one of the coolest merch they had there. The Revenue Cat had this semi-ugly sock. They were given away for a story about Apple rejecting applications. Your story. So Tanzila now has these socks, thanks to Fipster. Yeah, that was serious stuff. Now serious stuff. There also were companies, of course, who talk about their products, stuff like that. There also were obviously talks, and as I said, a lot of them were good. And there was one place where you can talk to Google representative about anything you want, but like one-on-one session. I don't know what you can talk to them for an hour, but maybe if you're in a big company or whatever. So I first would like to tell about, let's say, big topics that were noticeable there. One big thing was Android Automotive. For me, it was completely new area. I didn't know much about at all. I mean, I know there is a Android Auto and like how it's called on Apple side, Apple CarPlay, but basically your iPhone or Android device you plug to a car, and it basically streams some data there. There is a dedicated UI, but essentially your phone is a host for all the stuff happening there. Android Automotive is a separate operational system built on top of Android for cars. Yeah, well, why it makes sense to bring another operation system there is that in modern car, that's not I was counting it, it's was from some presentation, you can find 20 different operation systems running at the same time. And obviously they, well, not always easy to communicate from one another. Different manufacturers, I mean not car manufacturers, but parts of cars manufacturers who have different operation systems, different implementations, whatever. You'll have hard time communicating with them conveniently, let's say. So that's why it makes sense to have, well, to unify it maybe a bit. But unfortunately, Android Automotive is not there yet, mainly because many aspects of car need to be governed by some real-time operation system, which is not an Android one. That's one of the reasons why it basically still used for infotainment systems, like the screens in the car and stuff like that. Anything that's not that crucial to like life dependent. I don't know how to put it better. But according to some people I was talking to, it's getting there at some point in the future. It can be rendered in the like not only infotainment screen, but the cluster when you have a speedometer and more old school car stuff. Let's say this way. The biggest problem about all the automotive Android Automotive right now is what we had in Android like, well, years ago, when Samsung were doing their operation system on top of Android, which was different from what HTC was doing or whoever else. They were different. Thankfully, it never happened so that application that was running on Samsung couldn't run on HTC or vice versa. That's what was called fragmentation. You probably heard this word about Android back in the days, and it was like something that should have killed Android, but never happened because essentially it was designed so that it can be incorporated in any device. So that never was a problem. However, till now, that's the problem with cars manufacturers right now, because if Samsung wanted to do their own stuff, there is nothing compared to what they want to do with automotive in their cars. So something that's made for Renault will never work on Audi, for instance. And it's not only because they're different cars, but in essence, they're just two different software. And the adoption, well, that's an interesting statistics, actually. They told that if you look at any modern car that have a complex infotainment system, 99% of the time that will be an Android Automotive kind of stuff. Some fork, some implementation on top of that, but basically most of them are. I guess only Toyota is still doing some old school stuff that didn't adopt what the rest adopted. But even with all of this, I guess it's not that well visible, but at the top right photo, you can see that in 2022, the whole Volkswagen group had cars that are running this operation system twice less than the cheapest Samsung device in the world. So numbers are not massive, even though that's like That's actually interesting perspective, because you can see that there are a lot of cars, but apparently there are more phones, and there are more precisely more new phones. So yeah, this whole industry is in a interesting state right now. It's probably a place where you can expect some growth in the future, and maybe even some opportunity as a developer. But also the developer experience is not that great, mainly because well, you depended on this complex device called car, and you can't easily replicate it. Again, it's getting better. They were talking about stuff that, like, you can record driving session and then replicate it in the emulators to test the whole system or the application and stuff like that. But yeah, quite complex stuff. But interesting. It's interesting to see that where it actually exists apart from cars. Basically, anything that moves and have somewhat complex UI on the screen, very likely to have some sort of Android Automotive under this. But we'll talk about it a bit later. Another unexpected to me, but still like big and unexpected to me thing was security. There were several companies that does nothing but security related to mobile application. Well, I was trying to add some bullet points describing what they do, but the list is like dozens of things. It's yeah, basically anti everything. They either have an SDK that can, for instance, help you to track that people are not running root devices. I don't know, that your app actually runs on the device in a designated area, not on an emulator, correct kind of device. It's not tampered with, repacked somehow. They also have some services that make it harder to reverse engineer your applications. Most of them, they had a way to, so basically you upload your build, which is like an APK or IPA file, to them. They disassemble it and reassemble it, adding some random data to make scrambled, like uglified code even more hard to understand, like make sense of what's connected to what. Yeah, interesting thing, lots of stuff, and I don't think that any of our mobile projects actually needed something as complex as this, but it was nice to talk to him, because absolutely new thing. I never thought about it. And probably the third biggest thing was multi-platform. Well, there was a JetBrains stand. They were pushing Kotlin multi-platform and Compose multi-platform pretty hard. Yeah, there were several talks that's related to it, either about how we migrated something to this stack, or how I built something with this stack. For instance, here's guy was doing a desktop application for, like guitar pedals for electric guitars, and he wanted a device that connects different kinds of them into one and allow toggling between them easier. So here's a device in the middle. It looks like a device, but yeah, it was a nice story about how to engineer, like all the aspects from engineering the boards, assembling the device, writing code for it, and deploying it somewhere. Else. Interesting stuff. Yeah, but the conference app was made in Flutter and was quite ugly. But there were other interesting companies, actually. There was this Runway. Basically, I'll have some small notes about each. Runway helps to manage releases, like prepare builds, assemble them, and schedule releases, and have this all in one place. The main interesting thing about that it's not so much about their product per se. It's just the idea I somehow never thought about in all my years working with mobile apps, that you can kind of make rollback strategy for mobile apps. The thing is that App Store and Google Play doesn't have a mechanism to roll back to previous version at all. Like the next version always should have a bigger version, bigger build number. And yeah, there is no way to just cancel the current one and let the users install the previous one, like at all. But somehow someone came up with a simple strategy to basically make two versions. For instance, you have 1.0.0 with build number of 1, and then you want to make 1.1.0. You give it higher build number, and then you also make like a patch version increment to your 1.1, so it will be 1.1.1 and build number 3, and you send both of them to review. You release one with the build number 2. Sorry, bear with me. And if there is a problem with it, you just release that patch version 1 with build number of 3. But the catch is that it's actually the same code base that was like the 1.0.0, the original one. So kind of rollback strategy in a world where there's no rollback strategy. Yeah. Another interesting project was the second one, Ditto. It's not that exciting in a way, but it's an SDK that can help you build a network of devices without internet. The most proud use case, let's say, was an application for American airlines like Delta, American's Delta Airlines, for cabin crew, so they can talk to each other using, say, their phones without internet connection, like on a plane. The devices build their own network and they can communicate with each other. The next was Source Labs. What's interesting about them that they have a huge array of real devices you can use for testings, including some pretty non-standard ones. For instance, Android can be run as an operation system for some, say, scanners, as in if you go to a store, like a grocery store, some of them may have this device with a scanner. You basically grab your goods, scan, and put it in a cart, and then just pay in the end. So that's an Android device with a scanner. And if you need to test something on it for whatever reason and you don't have the device itself, they may have these quite specific devices. And the last one was about some testing framework. What's interesting about it is that it's built on top of Playwright, so you have the same syntax, the same infrastructure for mobiles, web, whatever. Maybe not whatever, just mobile apps and web. Yeah, I'll definitely give it a try when I'll have a reasonably big project. And yeah, the Source Labs had the second best merge on the conference, this hotfix hot sauce. It caused pain. I tested it already, but yeah. I'll next want to briefly talk about some talks I found interesting, useful. Yeah, slides are no good, I admit. This was a nice talk about Kotlin coroutines. There were a lot of good examples, good samples, how to do something, how to not to do something, but the only bullet point I have there is cancellation exception that apparently nobody knows about, nobody handles it correctly. The thing is that, for instance, you have a like one coroutine that creates another internally, then another internally, and ideally, if something internally breaks, cancels, it should propagate this cancellation upward and cancel all the parents. But if you have a silly try catch inside that will swallow this cancellation exception, that's will not happen, and somehow it's not a known thing to apparently many developers. And yeah, I saw a lot of code with this kind of try catch and write some of it myself. It was enlightening small stuff. Yeah. That was an interesting story. It was actually a lightning talk, like 20 minutes talk about runtime reflection in Kotlin. It turned out it's a different thing that's Java's reflection. It's faster and it's more safe, as much as reflection can be called safe at all. For instance, it doesn't allow you to access private members or modify them. You basically can only reconstruct objects on the fly and stuff like that. And also, that was the presentation fully made, as you can see on the photo to the right. In the ID, it just was a huge couple thousand lines files, comments, and there were like some code in it. It's I enjoyed it. It's like zero preparation, like I right now apparently. Yeah, I didn't find any photo for this one, so just what was happening after the conference, like after party. And I was actually writing about this one in dev channel already. It's about enforcing some architectural or stylistic rules in your code base with a tool called Consist. And it's like a linter, first of all, but the good part about it, it's very easy to write new lint rules with it because they're written as a test, so they run as a test. But since it's unit tests, they run fast, and you can enforce pretty abstract things like you can't place this kind of logic in this in this package and stuff like that. Many more. If you want, you can read it somewhere in depth. I give more details there. The next was about making Android apps smaller. Basically, there were a lot of nuances how Shrinker R8 works, how you push it like to the limits. Should you do it? Should you not? Some nuances and gotchas. For instance, turn out this algorithm for some reason is one-pass algorithm. So in Android, you can have two main kinds of resources: your code in Java or Kotlin, and usually XML resources. And it kind of checks if your, I don't know, I don't exactly remember the order, but since it's one-pass algorithm, it can look, for instance, that your XML file doesn't refer to some Java code, Linux, but in fact, it can, no, probably the other way around. It can first see that some Java code in third-party libraries reference to the resources, leave these resources, but then it find out that your code doesn't use this third-party Java code, for instance, clean it, but resources will stay. I don't know why it works this way, but it is what it is. Also, were a lot of funny stuff about how third-party libraries can break all your optimizations completely because how this config file works, it's additive. It's not overriding anything. So if any of dependency you have a rule saying don't obfuscate, that means that all your code is not obfuscated at all. And there were ways to overcome it as well. Yeah, there were more, well, actually, yeah, there were more interesting talks. For instance, there was one about pixel shaders in Android. It turned out there is a subset of OpenGL language, like the scripting, well, shader language in Android. It's easy, simpler, more limited, but apparently quicker in an Android runtime. So you still can do a lot of interesting stuff with it. It was the most complicated talk to me because I don't have much experience with the graphics. Yeah, that was in some place of it is, this meme when how to draw an owl, just like circle, circle, and then an owl, but not as bad. Yeah, the last day there was, let's say, entertaining talk about from Eric Hellman about all the devices he know of or worked with that was or running Android, and it's pretty much anything you can think of. That slide about AI3 was taken from there, and one final example, of course, was the Rabbit R1. But yeah, as I said, anything with a screen where you can see a somewhat complex UI and some probably anything that is not too old, very likely will be running some sort of Android. It can be, apart from phone tables, TVs, watches, whatever, it's home appliances, anything that is smart, cameras. Actually, Android was meant to be a camera operation system before it was acquired by Google, but never happened, but still, there are cameras. Any scanners, card readers, all sorts of cars, from like normal personal cars to huge excavators, motorbikes, bikes, whatever else, literally. Yeah, and Rabbit Array. Actually, Array, why I can call it Array? R1. Actually, he brought this device there, and I played with it a bit. It's very nicely made piece of hardware. Pity the rest about it is useless. I'd really be glad if the same company that Image Engineering made a phone, like designing made the phone. It would be something, I guess, remarkable given how uneventful phone designs are recently. Yeah, well, the last question is why to go to the conference, I guess. You can learn something new. I did. Meet new people. I absolutely didn't. Mainly because I don't know how to small talk, and I was on the conference alone. So yeah, I was like that weirdo who walking alone in a crowd of people. Yeah, you can collect some cool merch. And the last thing is probably remind yourself why you like all this stuff in the first place. And that's it. Thank you. Yeah, if you have, I don't know, any questions or whatever else, that's the time.
Yeah, I was wondering, like after this conference, do you have an idea what you will do differently? I mean, in your daily development work, perhaps you learn something new, or I don't know, not new, but it changed your opinion on something, and you will do something differently.
That's a good question, actually. I don't think I can highlight something particular. There were a lot of small things here and there. Probably one of them was the reminder that everything doesn't need to be perfect. For instance, there was the talk I didn't mention about. There is a company, Tidal, like hi-fi audio streaming service, like a Spotify, but with a way higher quality. And their story was about how they started using Jetpack Compose for UI in their app. And they started with, and how you probably should approach it if you have a legacy Android application with view system, where you can start migrating. So like it can be the easiest screen in your app, like some settings or whatever, just to like get familiar with it, or the most painful one. You can't make it like worse, for instance. And for them, that was the home screen, like this complex scroll view with different categories. There are a lot of A/B tests. It like changed from your location, your kind of user, time of the day, and stuff like that. They start with it, and turn out for several years it wasn't. Well, it was implemented with just a scroll view with lots of nested components, and that's what would get you rejected in a tech interview for Android position at even a probably junior level. And they were like, it was pretty fine for years for them. So it was a nice reminder as well that you can build good stuff with subpar approaches as long as you're aware they are so, and have in mind at some point they need to go and refactor it.
Got it. It sounds very interesting. What also was interesting to me is to learn that there are something about 20 operational systems running simultaneously in a single car. And I don't know, that's just impressive. I mean,
I guess they
yeah,
all
like,
they all either some Linux derivatives or some Windows kinds, but it wasn't just like, for instance, you have something made by, I don't know, let's say Panasonic, that's installed in the car. They have own idea about the operation system. There is a supervisor, some sort of stuff, and basically you have some stuff made by Bosch, for instance. They have their own kind of operation system. That's how it ends up so miserably, let's say.
yeah. And you know what? Like, it makes me feeling a bit more scary, like driving the car, because previously I thought there was just one vendor, and yeah, and it sort of made this whole thing more reliable. And when I deal with computers every day, I see a lot of like errors and glitches and so on. And now we need to not even double it, but we need to multiply it by 20 because yeah, we have 20 times more development teams and so on and so on. And it makes me like both scary and wondering how all the cars are actually running well. Most of the times, yeah.
Yeah, well, all the stuff about cars and Android and them was enlightening. I kind of pity that I learned about it the last day, because in the first 2 days I didn't go near these stands because I wasn't that interested in cars and what they do for them in general. But would I listen to the same people on the day one? I probably spent more time with the vendors. They just look. They don't look like an ordinary stand on the developer conference. They are super fucking serious guys. So you can't that easily approach them, at least in my mind. But yeah, that's also why I probably were skipping them initially.
Okay, I have a last question from my side. Like, given that it was a conference in Berlin, did they serve beer instead of coffee during like coffee breaks?
There were no coffee breaks per se. There were like a huge canister of coffee, questionable coffee. You can drink at any time. But after the conference, there always was a beer, a lot of beer every day, I guess. And some companies had a fridge with it as well, as I recall. But yeah, there was a lot of it.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. It sounds like silence. So okay. So it seems like we let's call it just a meeting, right? And
Yep.
let's call it a meetup. Thank you, Pavel, for the nice presentation. And yeah, that's it for the day. Thank you for your time, guys. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.